The vast corridors of Al-Karim International Academy gleamed with marble floors and golden chandeliers. Students in crisp uniforms whispered as the results board was pinned to the wall. One by one, names and scores appeared. At the very bottom, again, was Faris Al-Karim, son of Sheikh Hamdan, one of the wealthiest men in the Gulf. Laughter filled the hall. Can you believe it? The billionaire's son can't even pass basic exams. He's a disgrace to the name Al-Karim. Faris clenched his fists, his face burning red. He had tutors, he had books, he had everything money could buy, yet nothing seemed to help him. His father's disappointment weighed heavier than all the gold in their palaces. That evening, Sheikh Hamdan sat in his study, his voice cold and sharp. Faris, you have humiliated me again. Do you think money alone will carry you in this world? Do you think respect comes without knowledge? You will destroy the name I built. Faris bowed his head, ashamed. For the first time, the mighty son of a billionaire felt smaller than anyone else. As he left the study, he wandered aimlessly through the academy courtyard. The night was quiet, save for the sound of a broom scratching against the stone floor. There, under the dim light, an old black janitor swept silently, humming a tune under his breath. His uniform was faded, his shoes worn, but his eyes carried a strange depth, as if he knew truths that no book had ever taught. Faris paused, watching him. Something in that calmness unsettled him. The janitor looked up, gave a small nod, and said softly, "You're carrying the wrong burden, young master. You're trying to fill your head, but you have not yet opened your heart." Faris frowned. "What do you mean?" The janitor smiled faintly. "When you're ready to understand, come find me. I'll show you the secret no exam can hide." And with that, he returned to his sweeping, leaving Faris with 1,000 questions and the first spark of curiosity he had ever felt. The next morning, Faris walked into the academy with heavy steps. Students still smirked as he passed, whispering behind his back. Normally he would lash out or hide behind his family name, but today, the old janitor's words lingered. In his mind, you're trying to fill your head, but you have not yet opened your heart. During lunch, while the rest of the academy laughed and boasted, Faris slipped quietly to the back courtyard where he had seen the janitor sweeping the night before. There he was again, slow, steady, broom in hand, as if time itself belonged to him. Faris hesitated, then blurted out, "You said you had a secret. I want to know it." The janitor looked up, his eyes kind but sharp, as if weighing the boy's soul. "Secrets are not gifts, young master. They are earned." Faris frowned. "My father can pay you whatever you want." The janitor chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Money buys tutors, not wisdom. You want to pass your exams? Then you must forget being a billionaire's son for 1 hour each day. You are no prince, no heir. You are just a student. And I will be your teacher." Faris shifted uncomfortably. The idea of being taught by a janitor felt humiliating, yet something about the man's calm voice pierced through his pride. "What's your name?" Faris asked quietly. "Malik," the janitor replied. "And today, your first lesson begins." He handed Faris the broom. "Clean this courtyard." Faris's jaw dropped. "What? I came here to study, not to sweep floors." Malik's eyes narrowed. "Then leave. Because if you cannot master discipline in small things, you will fail in great ones. Knowledge is like this courtyard, cluttered and dirty. You must first learn to clear it before you can build anything." Faris stood frozen, torn between anger and curiosity. Around him, the academy walls loomed high, mocking his failures. Slowly, almost grudgingly, he took the broom. As he swept, students passing by laughed louder than ever. "Look at the billionaire's son. Now he's a janitor too." His ears burned, but Malik only watched silently. When Faris finally dropped the broom, sweating and humiliated, Malik spoke. "Good. Today you learn the first secret, humility. Without it, no knowledge will stay in your head. Tomorrow, we begin the real work." And for the first time, Faris walked away not angry, but curious. The following evening, Faris returned to the courtyard, still unsure why he came. His pride screamed that he was being foolish, but his heart, strangely, pulled him back. Malik was waiting, leaning on his broom like a staff. "You came back," he said with a faint smile. "I don't know why," Faris muttered. "Because failure finally taught you what wealth could not," Malik replied. "Now let's begin." He led Faris to an empty classroom, not with books or desks, but with a single chalkboard and a box of chalk. The room smelled of dust and silence. "Write down the word knowledge," Malik instructed. Faris rolled his eyes but obeyed, scrawling it across the board. "Now," Malik said, "explain what it means." Faris stammered, knowing things, having facts. Malik shook his head. "Knowledge is not memory. Memory fades. Knowledge is understanding. It is when facts live inside you, not just on paper." He took the chalk and drew a circle, then another inside it. "This outer circle is noise. The world mocks you, distracts you, fills your mind with pride or shame. But the inner circle is focus. Once you enter it, no laughter, no insult can break you. That, young master, is how you learn." Faris frowned. "But I read the books." "Yes," Malik said calmly, "but you do not listen. You look at words, but your mind is chasing your father's approval. You fear failure so much that you never hear the lessons. That is why you forget everything." Faris went silent. For the first time, the truth stung deeper than the mockery of his classmates. Malik placed the chalk back in Faris's hand. "Close your eyes. Block out every voice in your head. Imagine the page as if it is speaking only to you. Listen to it." Reluctantly, Faris obeyed. And to his surprise, it worked. For the first time, the clutter of shame and fear faded. The numbers and words didn't seem so heavy. They began to make sense, piece by piece. When he opened his eyes, Malik was watching him closely. "You see? The second secret is focus. With humility and focus, even the weakest student can become strong." Faris felt something he had never felt before. Not mockery, not failure, but possibility. And in that moment, a spark was lit. The next day at the academy, word had spread fast. Faris Al-Karim, the billionaire's son, was seen sweeping floors with the janitor. By lunch, the whispers turned to laughter. Some students even pointed openly as he walked past. "Maybe he'll clean our shoes next." "Forget exams, Faris. Ask Malik for a mop. It suits you better." Faris's blood boiled. His fists clenched, his old temper rising. Every part of him wanted to lash out, to remind them who he was. But Malik's voice echoed in his mind. "The world mocks you, distracts you, fills your mind with noise. But only the inner circle matters." For the first time, Faris swallowed his pride and walked on silently. That evening he stormed into the courtyard where Malik was waiting. "They humiliated me in front of everyone. I can't stand it." Malik looked at him steadily. "Then today, you are ready for the third secret, patience." Faris snapped. "Patience won't change my grades. Patience won't stop their laughter." Malik stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "Patience is not weakness. It is the power to endure shame without letting it poison your mind. Without patience, you fight every insult and waste your strength. With patience, you rise above it and focus on what matters." Faris gritted his teeth, struggling. The lesson stung because it was true. Then Malik handed him a thin notebook. "From now on, you will study one subject each night with me. Slowly. Not rushing to pass, not to impress your father. One subject at a time. But you must endure the laughter until the results prove you." Faris looked down at the notebook. For once he did not argue. He simply nodded. The next weeks were brutal. Every day students jeered at him. Every night he sat with Malik, who broke down the lessons into simple, living examples. Math through the stars, history through stories, science through everyday life. And slowly, painfully, Faris began to change. His pride softened, his focus sharpened, his patience grew. But one afternoon, as the midterm exams approached, Safwan, the academy, his top student and Faris's lifelong rival, cornered him in the hall. "Still chasing scraps of wisdom from the janitor?" Safwan sneered. "Pathetic. When exams come, you'll fail again. And this time, your father won't be able to buy you a future." The old Faris would have erupted. But this time, he stood tall, meeting Safwan's eyes with calm strength. "Maybe," Faris said evenly, "but when I succeed, it won't be because of money. It will be because I earned it." The laughter in the hall died. For the first time, the arrogant billionaire's son didn't sound like a spoiled prince. He sounded like something far rarer, someone who had changed. The exam hall was silent, heavy with tension. Rows of students sat with pens poised, papers face down in front of them. The ticking of the clock was the only sound that filled the room. Faris sat in the middle row, his palms damp, his heartbeat loud in his ears. For years, this moment had been his nightmare. The moment he would stare at the paper, feel his mind go blank, and watch failure swallow him whole. "Begin," the invigilator announced. Pages flipped, pens scratched the surface of paper. Faris turned his sheet over and felt the old panic rise instantly. Equations stared back at him. Strange words blurred into confusion. For a moment he thought he would break, but then he closed his eyes. He remembered Malik's chalkboard, the 2 circles drawn by a steady hand. Block the noise, find the focus. Slowly, Faris inhaled, then exhaled. He let the whispers of fear, the weight of his father's expectations, and the mocking laughter of his classmates fade into the outer circle. Inside there was only the question in front of him, one step at a time. And suddenly, the numbers began to make sense. For the first time, he didn't rush, didn't panic. He worked steadily, line by line. History questions he once thought impossible flowed like stories Malik had told him. Even science problems seemed less like riddles and more like puzzles waiting to be solved. Around him, Safwan scribbled furiously, glancing at Faris with a smirk, confident as ever. But Faris didn't notice. For once, he wasn't competing with anyone. He was only competing with himself. Hours later, when the papers were collected, Faris leaned back in his chair, exhausted but strangely at peace. He hadn't been perfect. He knew that. But for the first time in his life, he had fought the battle with his mind and not lost. As the students filed out, Safwan muttered with a grin, "Don't look too hopeful, janitor's boy. A broom won't help you pass." Faris only smiled faintly and walked away. That evening, under the courtyard's dim lights, Malik listened as Faris recounted the exam. The old janitor's eyes twinkled. "You learned the 4th secret today," he said softly. "What's that?" Faris asked. "Courage," Malik replied. "Not the courage to fight others, but the courage to face yourself. And you, young master, finally did." Faris lowered his gaze, but inside, he felt something unfamiliar. Not arrogance, not fear, something far greater. Hope. The marble corridors of Al-Karim Academy buzzed with nervous whispers. Results day always felt like a storm. Everyone feared it, yet no one could escape it. Sheets of parchment with scores were being pinned to the tall notice board, and a crowd of students pushed and strained to see. Faris stood at the back, his fists clenched, heart pounding. His mind flashed back to countless humiliations, Safwan's cruel taunts, teachers shaking their heads, his father's silence at every failed report. He almost didn't want to look, but then he remembered Malik's steady voice, "Face the truth like a lion. Even if you fail, you rise taller for daring to look." Taking a deep breath, Faris pushed through the crowd. At the very top of the board, the names of the highest scorers were listed. Everyone expected Safwan to be there, as always, and indeed, his name gleamed in the 3rd position. But above him, in 2nd place, was a name that silenced the entire hall, Faris ibn Hamdan. The murmurs turned into gasps. "That can't be right. He failed every year. How is this possible? Did he cheat?" Safwan's smirk crumbled as his eyes darted to the board. Rage burned on his face. "This is a mistake," he shouted. "He's a fraud. A janitor's tricks won't change his bloodline." But before anyone could respond, a booming voice echoed through the corridor. "Enough." Sheikh Hamdan himself had entered, surrounded by his guards. The crowd fell silent, bowing slightly. His sharp eyes scanned the board, then shifted to his son. Faris swallowed hard. He had faced exams before, but nothing was as terrifying as this, his father's judgment. Hamdan stepped forward, his voice calm but heavy. "So, the boy who once brought me shame now stands before me as 2nd in the academy." No one dared breathe. Safwan tried to interject, but Hamdan silenced him with a single glare. Faris lowered his gaze, whispering, "I tried my best, father." Hamdan's expression was unreadable. Then, slowly, A flicker of something rare passed across his face, pride. "Perhaps," he said, his voice steady, "you are finally becoming a son worthy of my name." The hall erupted in shock. For the first time, Faris had not only silenced his enemies, he had earned his father's recognition. From the back, Malik watched with a quiet smile, his broom resting against the wall. He had known this day would come. But for Faris, this was only the beginning, because hidden in Safwan's clenched fists and burning eyes was a storm yet to come. The academy courtyard was alive with celebration. Students clustered around Faris, some congratulating him with hesitant smiles, others whispering in disbelief. For years he had been invisible, mocked, dismissed, humiliated. Now his name stood proudly on the results board. But while others marveled, Safwan seethed. His jaw clenched, nails digging into his palms. The humiliation burned like fire. How could he, the heir of an elite family, fall beneath the boy everyone had called the janitor's shadow? That night, Safwan gathered his closest followers in the marble gazebo of the academy gardens. His voice was a venomous whisper. "Faris thinks he has risen, but he doesn't know who controls the ground beneath his feet. If he won with exams, we will destroy him with disgrace." One of the boys asked nervously, "But what can we do? He earned those marks fair." Safwan smirked. "Every king falls not by swords, but by whispers. We will spread the tale, that he cheated, that the janitor smuggled him answers, that Malik himself tampered with the exam papers. By morning, Faris will be nothing but a scandal." The next day, the rumors spread like wildfire. Hallways echoed with whispers. "Did you hear? Malik gave him the answers. No wonder the janitor's broom is always in the exam halls. Faris didn't earn anything. He just tricked the system." Faris walked into class and felt the shift immediately. The same students who had praised him yesterday now averted their eyes, their smiles turning into suspicion. Some even laughed behind their hands. He clenched his fists, confusion swirling in his chest. Then he saw Malik in the distance, calmly sweeping the steps as if nothing had changed. Their eyes met. Malik's look was steady, almost challenging, as if to say, "This is your next test." But Safwan wasn't done yet. That afternoon, he marched into the courtyard holding a forged letter, claiming it was proof of Faris's cheating deal with Malik. He raised it before the students, his voice loud and triumphant. "Here is your so-called genius, a fraud, taught by a broom holder, not by merit." Gasps filled the air. Even the teachers gathered, staring at Faris with suspicion. For the first time since his victory, Faris felt the ground shake beneath him. His honor, his father's fragile pride, and Malik's dignity, everything was at stake. And Safwan smiled, certain he had won. The forged letter hung in Safwan's hand like a dagger, its inked words dripping poison into the minds of everyone gathered. Students whispered, teachers frowned, and Faris felt the weight of every doubtful gaze pierce through him. Safwan smirked, holding the letter higher. "See? The prodigy is nothing but a servant's trick. His father's pride is built on lies. Throw him out of this academy, where he belongs." The courtyard buzzed with voices, and even Sheikh Hamdan's advisor, who had arrived to witness the results, shook his head in disappointment. But before anyone could speak, Malik stepped forward. His broom tapped against the stones as he approached slowly, his face calm. "Safwan," he said evenly, "words written by your hand will not bind truth. Do you dare swear on your family's honor that this letter is real?" Safwan's smirk faltered for just a second, but he recovered quickly. "An old broom sweeper dares question me? Who would believe your word against mine?" The students murmured. It was true. Safwan was powerful, respected, untouchable. Malik was only a janitor. Faris felt the fire rise inside him. For years he had hidden behind silence, letting others fight his battles. Not this time. He stepped forward, his voice clear. "I will not bow to lies. If you claim I cheated, then prove it in the open. Test me here, in front of everyone. Give me questions, give me challenges. Let them see if I can answer without help." The courtyard froze. Safwan's smirk wavered. He hadn't expected such boldness. One of the professors, intrigued, adjusted his spectacles. "Very well. If you truly wish to prove yourself, young Faris, I will ask you questions, right now." Safwan's eyes widened. This is absurd. But the crowd shouted, "Let him try. Let him prove it." The professor stepped forward, reciting questions from mathematics, history, and science, complex ones that even top students hesitated to answer. Faris closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and recalled Malik's lessons, the circles, the focus, the calm. One by one he answered, slowly at first, then with confidence. Each correct response drew gasps from the students, admiration replacing doubt. Even the professors exchanged impressed glances. By the end, silence fell. Then the professor announced, "This boy needs no forged letter. His mind is sharp, his discipline real. He has earned his place." The courtyard erupted, not with whispers of doubt, but with cheers of respect. Safwan's face turned pale, fury simmering beneath his skin. His plan had crumbled before his eyes. Malik's lips curved into the faintest smile as he tapped his broom once more. Faris had not just defended himself, he had risen higher than ever before. Safwan stormed back into his family's mansion, his fists pounding the polished wood of his desk. The humiliation replayed in his mind, the cheers for Faris, the professors praising him. His own smug smile turned to ashes. He could not sleep, he could not breathe, until Faris was crushed. "This ends now," he hissed to himself. The next day, he summoned 2 of his most loyal followers into the shadowed corner of the academy's stables. His voice was low, sharp as a blade. Exams couldn't break him, lies couldn't break him. "So we will strike where it hurts most, not his marks, but his life." The boys hesitated. One asked nervously, "What do you mean?" Safwan's eyes gleamed with malice. "An accident. A lantern in the library. A fire sparked where he studies every night. No one will question it. The janitor and his pet student will vanish in smoke." The boys exchanged fearful glances, but Safwan's wrath left them no choice. That evening, Faris walked to the library, his books tucked under his arm. He felt lighter than he had in years. For once, his steps carried pride instead of shame. Malik had told him earlier, "Beware the silence after victory. That is when snakes strike." Faris had thought it only a proverb, but as he entered the library, he noticed something strange. The lanterns were already lit, too many of them, their flames flickering higher than usual, and in the corner, the faint smell of oil clung to the air. He frowned. Malik's warning echoed in his mind. Just then, Malik himself appeared at the doorway, broom in hand. His old eyes scanned the room quickly, then narrowed. Without a word, he strode forward and kicked over a suspiciously placed jar near the shelves. Oil spilled across the floor. "Out, Faris," Malik barked. Before Faris could move, a spark leapt from one of the lanterns. Flames roared up, licking the shelves. Screams erupted as students nearby saw the fire and ran for help. Faris froze, heart pounding. Safwan, standing in the shadows outside, watched with a cruel smile. This time, there will be no escape. But Malik grabbed Faris's arm, pulling him toward the back door. His voice was calm but firm. "Remember the 5th secret, boy. When the storm comes, you don't hide. You move through it." Together, they ran through the choking smoke, dodging falling books and crackling fire. The flames closed in, but Malik's steady hand guided them. They burst out into the night air just as part of the library roof collapsed behind them. Students gasped, rushing toward them. Safwan's smile faltered. Faris lived, again. But this time, the stakes had changed. This was no longer rivalry. This was war. The fire had been tamed by dawn, but the academy's library stood blackened and broken, its once proud shelves reduced to ashes. Students huddled in the courtyard, buzzing with fear and suspicion. Faris, his face smeared with soot, stood beside Malik. He was alive, but inside, fury burned hotter than the fire. This wasn't an accident. This was a trap. The headmaster and council of teachers gathered, their expressions grim. Sheikh Hamdan himself arrived, flanked by guards, his gaze cutting across the courtyard like steel. His voice was thunder. "Who dares bring such disgrace upon Al-Karim Academy? Who lit this fire?" All eyes turned to Faris. Whispers slithered through the crowd. "He was there. He spends nights in the library. Maybe he said it himself." Safwan stepped forward, his tone dripping with false innocence. "It's tragic, Uncle Hamdan, but perhaps someone desperate to prove himself thought destruction would cover his failures." Gasps rippled. Fingers began to point at Faris. But before the weight of falsehood crushed him, Malik stepped forward. His old hands trembled, but his eyes were sharp. From his robes, he pulled a charred scrap of parchment, Safwan's forged plan. Half-burned, but still legible, recovered from the library's corner. The crowd leaned closer. On it, Safwan's own hand had scribbled orders. Mention of oil jars, lantern placements, proof of the plot. The courtyard fell silent. Safwan's face went pale. "Lies! That's not mine!" he shouted. But his own followers shifted uneasily, guilt written on their faces. One broke down, blurting, "It's true! Safwan planned it all. We only helped place the oil. He wanted Faris gone." The truth struck like a sword. Murmurs turned into outrage. Sheikh Hamdan's face darkened, his hand tightening on his cane. He looked at his nephew with a mix of rage and disappointment. "You would endanger lives, burn knowledge, and stain this family's honor. For envy?" Safwan stammered, but guards seized him before he could flee. His fall was sealed, not by Faris's hand, but by his own hatred. The headmaster turned to Faris, bowing slightly. "You have shown not only intellect, but courage. You stood against lies, against fire, and you triumphed." For the first time, Sheikh Hamdan placed his hand on Faris's shoulder. "You are not the shame of my house. You are its future." Tears welled in Faris's eyes. But it was Malik's quiet nod from the back that meant the most. He hadn't just won honor. He had proven the lessons true. Wealth, status, and pride can build high towers, but envy and arrogance can burn them to ashes. True strength lies not in destroying others, but in mastering yourself. Faris rose not because of privilege, but because he listened, learned, and stood firm when the storm came. And so, the janitor's broom swept away lies and lit the path to truth, showing the world that wisdom often hides in the humblest of hands.